Welcome. This presentation has been created to provide information regarding healthy sexual development in young children, an area that can be challenging and may be avoided by adults due to discomfort with the topic or because of uncertainty with how to address the topic. After this presentation, you will be better prepared to respond to questions and behaviors connected to children's sexual development, as well as recognizing indicators of sexual abuse. My name is Lee Hinton. I am the Education and Health Promotion Coordinator at the Saskatchewan Prevention Institute. This presentation has been developed as part of our Maternal and Infant Health Program and Sexual and Reproductive Health Program. If you work with others, it would be beneficial to view this presentation together so you can discuss the material with your colleagues. This presentation was developed as a collaboration between the Saskatchewan Prevention Institute and the Government of Saskatchewan Ministry of Education. The Saskatchewan Prevention Institute, a provincial nonprofit organization, focuses on the promotion of primary prevention. Our organization bridges the gap between research and programming and transfers knowledge about the prevention of disabling conditions in children to the public and professionals. We raise awareness by providing training, information, and resources based on current best evidence. The mandate to reduce the occurrence of disabilities in children, along with our slogan, "Our goal is healthy children," guides the Prevention Institute's work. The Prevention Institute believes that children of all abilities have the right to the best physical, social, and emotional health possible. After all, a secure and healthy childhood will help provide a solid foundation for a healthy adult life. We are guided by a board of directors, an executive committee, a medical advisory committee, and a program advisory committee. The Saskatchewan Prevention Institute has long-term committed support from the following funders: Government of Saskatchewan, Kinsman Telemerico Foundation, Saskatchewan Abilities Council, University of Saskatchewan, and members of the community at large. The areas of focus for the Prevention Institute are child injury prevention, child traffic safety, Community Action Program for Children, also known as CAPC, early childhood mental health, fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, maternal and infant health, parenting, sexual and reproductive health, and tobacco and other drugs. The saying, "elephant in the room," means that sometimes we ignore something or pretend it isn't there because it makes us uncomfortable. But the topic may be difficult to ignore, like ignoring an elephant. The topic needs to be addressed in order to move forward towards a solution or improvement. What are your first thoughts when you hear the word sexual health? At what age do you think children's sexual development begins? What scares you, makes you uncomfortable about the topic? Do you think the topic has relevance in an early learning setting? Everyone's responses to these questions will be different based on their past experiences, but it is important to be aware of and reflect on our responses and how they may impact our work with children. Sexual health is a normal part of holistic development. The concept of holistic development will be familiar to educators in early learning, as this is introduced in the Early Learning Program Guide, Play and Exploration. Holistic development includes physical, intellectual, social-emotional, and spiritual well-being. Because it is a normal part of development, those who spend time with young children need to be aware of typical or appropriate and atypical or inappropriate development and behavior connected to sexual development, just as they are aware of other areas of development. When adults are equipped with knowledge, they will be able to provide developmentally appropriate information to children, as well as recognizing when additional support or intervention may be required. Consider how healthy sexual development is connected to each of these areas of development: physical, intellectual, spiritual, and social-emotional. Here is a summary of the areas of development. This visual is included in the workbook, Essential Learning Experiences, on page 2 if you have a copy of the document and wish to view the printed copy. If you are viewing this presentation with colleagues, you may wish to have multiple copies of this image available. Take a moment to discuss this with a partner and record some ideas about how sexual health development connects to each domain of holistic development. Consider ideas such as understanding and being comfortable with one's body, developing a gender identity, positive self-identity and self-esteem, having a positive approach to relationships, and having positive and safe experiences throughout life. When you are ready, move on to the next slide to see some possible responses. Here you can see some possible responses showing how healthy sexual development is connected to the areas of development. You may have included some of these in your responses and may also have additional ideas. Take a moment and read through the information provided and reflect on how this learning would be important for a child to experience. Children grow through various stages of sexual development, beginning in infancy. These stages include an increased understanding of relationships, sexuality, family, cultural, and moral values. Social interaction and engaging in appropriate sexual behaviors are important elements of growing up. The phases that will be discussed are generalized to age groupings. It is okay if a child reaches these phases earlier or later. Like all areas of development, not all children develop at the same rate. Not all children will exhibit all the behaviors discussed. This is okay. We often think of sexual health development as beginning at puberty. However, this development actually begins much earlier. The best time to start communicating healthy sexual information with your child is in the early stages of development. The building blocks of sexual health are laid throughout childhood. Healthy development begins with feeling good about and feeling confident in all aspects of growth and development. Babies feel loved and secure through their relationships with their primary caregivers. These relationships give babies the ability to trust, relate to others, express their needs, and experience pleasure. At this young age, children learn through their 5 senses: taste, smell, sight, touch, and hearing. This is how they gather information and make sense of their world. Parents and caregivers should make use of appropriate times to begin to teach their children the proper names for body parts, such as bath time or during diaper changes. This will help a child to become comfortable with his or her own body. Avoid names that instill fear. For example, talking about down there. Teaching children the proper names of their body parts helps to avoid shame and confusion later in the child's life. Boys may begin to realize that they have penises at around 6 or 7 months, the same time as they understand their other body parts, for example, their hands and feet. And girls may discover their vulva at around 6 to 8 months. Parents may observe penile erection in the boys and vulval lubrications in the girls during diaper changes. This is a natural reflex response to genital touch and also can be a sign of needing to empty their bladders. It is important to note that this is not about sex. Adults may view these observations through a sexual lens, but it is simply physical development and instinctual responses. Infants and toddlers may find it soothing to stroke their vagina or penis. Many young children rub their genitals as they are drifting off to sleep. This is normal, and parents and caregivers should not shame or punish children for doing this. During the first 18 months of life, children are learning the differences between males and females and beginning the process of identifying themselves as either male or female. Around 12 months, infants begin to recognize that they are different and distinct from others in their environment. At 2 years of age, most children may also begin to recognize that the people around them are identified as either male or female. This is part of the gender identity and gender role development of a child. Girls who spend time with boys sometimes express wanting a penis. This is normal. The penis is a very visible extra part that a boy gets. They also get to stand to pee. Young girls may feel like they are missing out. Social interactions with other infants and toddlers, supported by a caring adult, can help children learn to have positive social and interpersonal relationships throughout life. This is key to healthy sexual development, as it helps children begin to understand how to listen to another person, how to empathize, how to be respectful, how to take another person's wants and needs into consideration, and also what is unacceptable, hurtful, or damaging in a relationship with another person. Remember that young children learn through their 5 senses. This includes the exploration of their body, from playing with their toes to playing with their genitals. This is normal behavior. As they are learning through their 5 senses, young children also like to be naked. They like the feel of skin-to-skin contact. They like to hear the heartbeat of their parents. They like the feel of air on their bodies. They enjoy playing in water, including warm, not hot, baths, and even playing in mud. All of this is normal. During the first 3 years of life, the brain is developing rapidly. Neural pathways are formed that allow the brain to communicate with its different parts, but also with the body. Our neural pathways develop based on the experiences we have as children. Children who have multiple experiences being touched in a loving, gentle, and caring manner, such as hugging, sitting close with others, getting a back rub to fall asleep, or gentle hair brushing, will develop neural networks that reinforce that touch is not scary, that it is okay, and that it is respectful. Touch is one of the most important ways that young babies learn. Loving touch and skin-to-skin time with caregivers is important. At this age, babies use their whole body and all of their senses, including smell, sight, and sound, but especially touch and taste. Allow infants to stimulate their mouth area. This can be during feeding, with pacifiers, or with their hands. They derive pleasure from stimulating their mouths. It is important during the early years that infants have consistent and loving care. Consistent, dependable, and responsive care allows the infant to develop trusting relationships. Secure attachment occurs when a young child is able to rely on the parent for comfort and protection. The caregiver bond is the caregiver wanting to provide care and protection for his or her child. Attachment is about the child needing and receiving care and protection from the caregiver. The baby learns to trust that the caregiver will be there when needed. Babies and caregivers are naturally primed to perform attachment behaviors. That is, attachment is a biologically based or innate connection and can form between a child and more than one caregiver. Attachment results in infants having a secure base to explore from, safety, consistency, loving care, and feelings of importance. Attachment helps infants develop self-concept, recover from stress, regulate their emotion, and explore their world. These first relationships prepare the child for all additional trusting relationships later in life. Young children use attachment behaviors that are unpleasant, like crying, to bring caregivers close. They reward their parents' responses by smiling, vocalizing, cooing, and eye contact. A newborn's range of eyesight is from about an adult's chest to the adult's eyes, the cradling and feeding position. Eye-to-eye contact encourages the development of attachment as does skin-to-skin contact, warmth, and hearing the caregiver's heartbeat. For this reason, regardless of whether a woman is breastfeeding or not, encouraging skin-to-skin contact while feeding is important. Partners can also be encouraged to do this. For more information on attachment, you could visit the website of the Saskatchewan Prevention Institute and/or participate in a play and exploration for infants and toddlers workshop from the Ministry of Education. Normal sexual development, 2 to 5 years. Sexual development in this age group is a continuation of the key growth processes that began in infancy. During this stage, curiosity about the genitalia of peers can be seen in the form of games such as I'll show you mine if you'll show me yours, or playing doctor or playing house, and trying out roles such as mummy or daddy. These are typical ways that boys and girls are able to see how other children's bodies, including their genitals, are similar to and different from their own. This is normal and should not be something that results in scolding or punishment. This can be an opportunity to teach about privacy and respect for their own bodies and the bodies of others. Adults usually feel anxiety over children's sexuality because they are misinterpreting children as having adult motives. When children are playing and discovering, they are being curious and playful. They are spontaneous and open, and their actions are not directed by sexual desires. During this stage, questions about human reproduction may come in the form of, "Where did I come from?" or "Where do babies come from?" It is important to answer questions honestly and use correct terminology while keeping an open and accepting facial expression. Children can easily pick up on adult discomfort. Children may be curious at the sight of a pregnant woman. Basic but accurate explanations will suffice, since human reproduction is complex and children at this stage may not be able to understand fully. This information can serve as a building block for future learning. Continue to teach children accurate names for body parts. This helps to avoid confusion and the perception that there is anything shameful about the child's body. Children at this age continue to discover the differences between boys and girls. Remember, they are learning these differences through the adults and media that they are in contact with. Provide lots of opportunities for children to explore gender, such as providing anatomically correct dolls in the dramatic play area. It is also important to provide opportunities to explore non-stereotypical gender roles through books and dramatic play. Some children will not identify with their gender. That is okay. Support children's growth in identifying their gender and sexuality. At this age, children are able to begin to understand the concept of privacy. Explain to preschoolers that touching one's genitals is something that they should do in private, such as in their room or in the bathroom. Try not to instill shame or guilt. It is okay to touch your own genitals. Young children learn through modeling or mimicking the adults around them. It is important for adults to understand that their reactions to the opposite sex, body parts, sexuality, nudity, and questions will influence the child's perceptions of sexuality, gender, and sexual health. At this age, children will have lots of questions. Answer these questions honestly. Answer with the facts. Provide short answers. Only give as much detail as the child asks for. Keep your facial expression and body language open, honest, and accepting. Children need appropriate models and opportunities to learn how to show affection in appropriate ways that respect the right of others to refuse if they are uncomfortable. Encourage children to be affectionate with others, but also to do so respectfully. This could include teaching a child to ask, "Is it okay if I give a hug?" It is also important to teach children to observe the body language of others and to not force touch on anyone who backs away or looks uncomfortable. Model this with your children. For example, give a hug to show you care, always asking first. Allow children to interact with children of the opposite sex so that they are comfortable relating to others and are able to develop relationships and friendships beyond gender boundaries. Provide guidance on respect for others as needed. Respect for space, bodies, ideas, and feelings. It is normal for children at this age to talk about their genitals and try to look at or touch others' genitals. Scolding children for these behaviors can instill a sense of guilt and shame. Rather than punishing children, it is important to provide them with information, including that their bodies are private. You can teach them the swimsuit rule, which is explained on the next slide. The swimsuit rule provides children with a reference that they are familiar with and can understand easily. Simply stated, you can explain to the child that the parts of your body that are covered up by your swimming suit are private. They are special, and you shouldn't show them to other people. It is okay for your caregiver to see or touch these parts sometimes, like when you're having a bath or if you hurt there. Sometimes a doctor might need to see these parts to help you, but otherwise we keep them covered because they are special and private. You may have wondered, so what about when two children are involved in sexual playing or touching? How should adults respond? Peer interactions that appear to be sexual in nature can be difficult for adults to respond to. A simple yes or no does not answer the question about whether the interaction is okay or whether there are concerns. Interactions between two children are different than adult-child interactions. A behavior that would be considered abuse when it involves an adult and a child may be developmentally appropriate between two children. Let's take a closer look at this. With a peer interaction, it is rare that there is an intent to harm or victimize the other child. The interactions are often a result of natural curiosity, where the children are trying to learn about their world and the people in it. This includes behaviors such as children looking at or trying to touch each other's body parts. Just because it is natural doesn't mean that the behavior should be ignored or encouraged. We need to respond to children exploring in this way in a thoughtful and respectful manner. This includes calmly stopping the play and providing information and limits to the children regarding privacy. Children should not be punished. There are some situations, however, where an interaction between peers is concerning because it may indicate that the child has been a victim of abuse and may require protection and support. If you have a reason to suspect abuse, you must report it. More information about reporting concerns regarding child abuse can be found on the Saskatchewan.ca website. The Child Abuse Protocol is also available there. All adults who interact regularly with young children should be familiar with this document. The Saskatchewan Child Abuse Protocol provides information about how to respond if you suspect that a child is being abused. It is your personal responsibility to report if you have a reason to believe that a child is in danger. This means you cannot have someone else call for you. So how do you know if a peer interaction is problematic and needs to be reported? Typical peer-to-peer behaviors include normal curiosity, interactions between children who are the same age, children who play together regularly, spontaneous and unplanned activities, and if the children can be easily diverted. There are a few key considerations to make this determination. Any of these characteristics indicate concerns and should be reported for follow-up. Age or developmental difference between the children indicates a difference in power, and that one child may be exerting power over the other to make them do things they don't want to. It can also be the case that an older child, who is aware that the behavior is inappropriate, has chosen a younger child or a child with a delay in their intellectual development because they are looking for someone who will go along with the behavior. Interactions that are hidden or sneaky indicate that the child is aware that the behavior is inappropriate. Interactions that are persistent and ongoing, threatening, intrusive, forceful, and not easily diverted are warning signs of abuse and must be reported. Children who display advanced sexual knowledge, either in actions or words, may have been exposed to sexual behaviors or materials and require support, so this must be reported as per the child abuse protocol. As children move into school age, there is a renewed interest in gender roles. This can be seen in behaviors such as showing a strong preference for gender-typed clothing and activities, and in exploring more about what it means to be a boy or a girl. At this age, children often identify with their same-sex parent. Many children in this age range will become aware of issues related to sexual orientation. It is, therefore, important that parents and caregivers explain to children the concepts of heterosexuality, homosexuality, and bisexuality. Allow children to express their femininity or masculinity by choosing their own clothing, games, nicknames, and friends. Do not punish children who play with toys that society deems are not appropriate for their gender. Be accepting of the femininity and masculinity that children express, regardless of their biological gender. Everyone has both feminine and masculine traits, and children need to be able to explore these. Parents need to know that there may be early signs of puberty at the later part of this stage, particularly with girls showing signs of puberty, such as breast development and the growth of pubic hair. This is completely normal. Consequently, children at this age should receive basic, age-appropriate information related to puberty so they are prepared and understand the changes their body is undergoing. It is important that parents share their family and cultural values in regards to sexual health, but it is equally important to remain open to questions that children might ask. Around the age of 8 years old, children are beginning to understand where a baby comes from. It is important for parents and caregivers to educate children about the basic aspects of human reproduction, including the role of sexual intercourse in the reproductive process. This is necessary to prevent misconceptions about sexuality and reproduction. Be sure to use correct names for body parts to be clear. There are many children's books available to assist in these discussions. As children get older, they continue to need physical contact with caregivers. A touch on the shoulder, a hug, or a pat on the head is not inappropriate for staff working with children at any age. It is important not to force physical contact on children at any age. It is respectful to ask and or be observant of cues that indicate whether a child is uncomfortable with physical contact. For children aged 9 to 12, there's often a rapid transition from childhood to adolescence. For girls, these changes include breast development and the appearance of hair in the pubic area and underarms. Most girls begin menstruation during this time. Puberty in boys starts slightly later than in girls. The first sign of puberty in boys is the enlargement of the testes, followed by the growth of the penis, and later, growth of pubic hair. As children enter puberty, they enter a period of heightened sexuality. Many youth at this phase of development are preoccupied to some extent with sexuality and the physical changes to their body and the bodies of those around them. Puberty is typically the time when sexual feelings are heightened, and adolescents may begin to experiment with masturbation. Some will masturbate regularly, and some will do so infrequently or not at all. Socially, youth entering puberty begin to spend more time with their peers. Typically, such peer relationships do not involve sexual intercourse. Youth at this age are much more likely to kiss and hug, while breast and genital touching are less likely but not uncommon. 9 to 12 years is a critical period for the provision of sexual health education. Friends and social networks outside of the family will become very important at this time. It is important that children are aware that they can go to their parents with questions to receive true and reliable information. Parents play key roles as sexual educators. Parents should not assume that the education system takes over this role once their child is old enough to attend school. The more comfortable and open parents have been during the early years, the more comfortable their children will be about coming to their parents with questions when they are older. It is important that peers or the internet do not become the main source of sexual education, as this can lead to misinterpretation, misinformation, and peer pressure. Children are becoming more independent during this age. They may be staying home alone for the first time or start training to babysit other children. It is important that as they spend more time away from the protection of their parents, they learn to avoid risky social situations and learn how to get help if they feel uncomfortable in a situation. Children at this age also need to learn about healthy relationships, friendships, peers, and partners. This includes being able to identify warning signs of an unhealthy relationship where a person may be victimized. Remember that children learn through example. Children are learning about relationships based on those that they observe. Parents and caregivers have a great opportunity to model healthy relationships and lifestyles. Now that we have explored healthy sexual development, let's talk about when you need to be concerned. Just as it is important to be aware of healthy sexual development, it is also important to know what behaviors would be considered child abuse. This slide includes a number of behaviors that would be considered abuse. If a child discloses that any of these situations have occurred to him or her, you have a duty to report it. Children are often scared to tell anyone that abuse has occurred. They often have been threatened, so they won't tell on the offender. Sometimes it is their behavior that allows us to recognize that abuse may have occurred. Adults who are aware of these behaviors can recognize abuse has occurred and assist the child to get help. These behaviors can be referred to as red flags or behaviors that adults need to pay attention to. You should be concerned if a child has more information about sexual acts than is developmentally appropriate. This may include information about smells, sounds, tastes, or visual details of sexual acts or behaviors, and can also include a child role-playing sexual acts. This may indicate that the child has witnessed or participated in sexual acts or has been exposed to sexually explicit material. Behaviors to be aware of because they may indicate that abuse has occurred include children masturbating excessively, especially if it is painful to them. Children who try to have an adult touch their genitals or try to have an adult touch the genitals of another child. Children who have injuries or physical trauma to their genitals. Children who engage in oral or genital contact. And engagement in simulated sexual intercourse. Persistent behavior related to sex would include the child continuing to request to see private parts of other children after the educator has discussed privacy with the child. Any major changes in behavior of a child should be explored, as it may be an indicator of abuse, stress, or trauma. Adults need to be observant of the children, as there are many situations that are stressful events, such as there being a new baby at home or grandma went home after an extended visit. But adults need to be observant and explore possible causes if children are withdrawn, depressed, or clingy, show a decline in school performance, show distress around a certain adult, excessively seek time with a particular adult, start showing aggression or self-destructive behaviors, experience disturbed sleep patterns, and experience physical pain or symptoms. We don't like to think that anyone would hurt a child, but it does occur, and we have a responsibility to help keep children safe. Children need to learn about personal safety and how to access help if they are being abused. Adults working with children need to be able to differentiate between developmentally appropriate behavior and problematic behavior. They also need to recognize signs of abuse and know how to respond, including the duty to report from the Child Abuse Protocol 2014. Healthy sexual development takes place in a context where children are protected from unwanted sexual activity and exploitation. Adults can help prevent abuse by teaching children that their bodies belong to them. Teach children about maintaining safety and personal boundaries. Teaching children that they have a right to privacy. Teaching children the difference between appropriate and inappropriate touch. Be specific. Tell children they have a right to say who may or may not touch their bodies. Teaching children that they should never be bribed or tricked into doing things that make them uncomfortable. Watch for signs of sexual abuse and exploitation. Encourage children to talk about the differences between healthy and unhealthy relationships, including friendships. Teach children who may or may not touch them and in what ways. Teach them who to talk with if someone is touching them inappropriately. Help children identify safe adults they could talk to if they need help. Encourage children to talk to an adult that they trust if they have been sexually abused, exploited, or bullied. It is also important to remember that you don't have to have all the answers. If you have questions about child development, know who you can talk to. This includes healthcare professionals such as the public health nurse or family doctor. Teach children to trust their feelings. Pay attention to their bodies, their gut, if they are uncomfortable or scared, and to get help. Talk to children about secrets. Some secrets make us feel good. These are surprises, like knowing what is in a present you are giving to a friend for their birthday. But no one should ever ask you to keep a secret that makes you feel bad, that someone is hurting you, or they will hurt someone you care about if you tell. We also need to teach children to keep telling adults. If the first one doesn't help, then tell another. There are many children's books available to assist you in bringing up and discussing these topics. You can access titles through your local library. Ensure you read the book yourself prior to reading with the children, so you are aware of the content and prepared for the questions and discussion that may occur after. If you are working with children who are not your own, it is important to communicate with the child's parents. Some parents may be more comfortable introducing the topic to the children themselves. Discuss this with the parents and support them with information and resources as much as possible. Educators who work with young children can be vulnerable to accusations of abuse, but there are some practices that, when used regularly, will reduce this risk. Avoid spending time alone or isolated with a child. Ensure you are in the line of sight of others as much as possible. Ensure all areas within the environment can be viewed easily. Windows can be used to increase visibility, for example, a window from the office into the play area. Encourage children to be independent with dressing and toileting once it is developmentally appropriate. If they do need assistance, leave the door open when in the bathroom with a child. Educate yourself and the children on respectful relationships. Document any concerns, unusual behavior, or observations. Use minor injury reports to document children's injuries and have parents sign these. Document any injury that a child may have when they arrive at the program. Include the explanation provided for the injury, if one was provided, by the parents or caregiver. Observation is important. Responsive instruction includes being observant of children and their reactions to situations so that they are able to respond appropriately. Consider how others may interpret your interaction with children. Always behave in a manner that someone watching from a distance would view as appropriate. Never force physical contact with children. Be aware of signals or cues that may indicate they are uncomfortable, such as pulling away or averting eye contact. And lastly, monitor your own stress levels to be aware of your frustration levels. Errors in judgments can be made when stress levels are high. If you work with others, be observant of their stress levels as well. You could even develop a plan with a colleague to help each other if either of you are feeling stressed. This will ensure the safety of the children and model good strategies to keep everyone healthy and safe. Thank you for taking time today to explore this important topic. Our goal to have healthy, happy children in our province includes being aware of and supporting healthy sexual development. For more information, contact the Saskatchewan Prevention Institute at www.skprevention.ca.